Hello, Mark House here, Product Manager at RM, and I'm focused on RM Compare.
I'm Nick Hope, I'm a Product Manager at RM, and I'm bringing a new product, RM Echo, to market later this year.
So the purpose of this talk is to introduce a research project that we're running together, and it's based around quality and originality. RM Compare, for those of you unfamiliar, and we'll talk a bit more about this as the talk continues, is a comparative judgment tool. It takes the premise that we can assess by comparing one item to another.
Yeah, and RM Echo, what we've done in this project is combine the output of that product with RM Compare to look at the originality of that content as well.
So at the top we can see RM Compare. As you can see, there are two items presented side by side, and the role of the judge is to select which one they think is the best or the most creative or the most original or whatever you're deciding you're trying to assess.
And then in RM Echo, the idea is that every piece of content we add to the system, we can compare it with every other piece of content and perhaps additional reference material as well, to get an idea of how original and how similar each item of content is.
By bringing the RM Compare solution together with Echo, we're now able to get a better understanding of how perhaps quality and originality may interact.
We're very interested when we finish this project to work out what the correlation may or may not be. So for example, does the highest quality piece of work also represent the most original piece of work or something else entirely?
Working with a partner called the Independent Schools Examining Board, they have run a global competition that has encouraged children to submit original creative pieces of writing. On this occasion, they have received 3,000 entries, and the prompt was to write a creative piece of writing on the subject of light. When the pieces of work arrive, they'll all be judged in RM Compare, and they'll be judged by about 150 teachers from the schools which have submitted the pieces of work, using that simple A-B thing we saw earlier. And the winners of the competition will be made into books, and those books are sent back to the schools so that they can see what the quality of the work was. The way that we gathered in the items, the children were asked to fill in a simple form on the left. That form then generated a CSV, and using RM Compare, we placed the CSV into Compare. That generated 3,000 PDFs that we could then use for judging. And then we were able to invite the teachers to be judges in the session. Each item was seen multiple times, or will be seen multiple times, by multiple judges. And we did this last year, so we know roughly how this works. And so they're going to be doing their A's and B's. And on this chart here, we can see in the end we end up with a rank order. So the one at this end would be an item that won all its competitions, and the one at that end would have lost all its competitions. And in this case, we can see across the top here that each item was seen 16 times, and it would have been seen by multiple different judges. So I have the 150 we spoke about earlier. What we end up with is an extremely reliable and stable rank. It has a reliability of 0.88, so we're pretty sure that not only do we know the order of the items, but we know how valuable they are and how valuable they are relative to other items.
So what we did with the writing competition, with ISEB, we took all of that content into RM Echo, and this competition was split by age category. So there are 4 age categories involved. And so what we did, we put it through a very early version of RM Echo, and we were able to see some sort of metrics, some indication that tells us how similar each one of these items were to the other items in each age category. And you can see that here. We've got some that ranged from 100%, they were exactly the same, mostly submissions of the same content twice, and some that were only 1%, you know, where maybe there was just a couple of words that got flagged as being similar. And so we've got some examples. So the first one is something that we saw, just an example of something that was 1% similar. And here you can see what RM Echo is doing. It's picked up 2 different parts of 2 different sentences, and you can see that actually there are some synonyms, there is some similar phraseology, but ultimately these are 2 different pieces of work. And then we have this one, which was 69% similar. There's still work to do here. We're still going to work out what it is that makes these 2 things so similar. The first half of this story was very original in both examples, but the second half of the story was exactly the same. So we're really interested to see what that means and what that might tell us about the demographic and the entrance. And you can see here that those pieces of text were literally exactly the same. And then we have this one which has a 76% similarity. And you can see here that actually we believe this is two different drafts of the same story. So very similar themes, similar characters, similar ideas, but actually the sentence structure has changed a little bit from one version to the next. And then this one, which we were eager to find out why it was 99% similar, and when we look, we can see that actually the title and the ID of the entrant is different, but everything else was the same. So what we suppose what happened here is that somebody has decided to just give their piece of work a new title and resubmit it. And finally, there were some that had identical content, which we think means that somebody has just submitted that content twice. So this leaves us with a few questions. This work is still ongoing. And I think the first one that we outlined at the beginning was, how does the originality of a piece of work and the quality of a piece of work correlate? Do they correlate? Does it matter? What is the meaning behind that? I'm very interested as well in terms of what we do find, how we can use that to benefit the individual learner. Can this provide some level of feedback as to what quality looks like, whether originality is what's valued in a particular context? And then finally, one thing that we noticed with this competition is that out of 3,000 separate entries, there was very little similarity apart from those examples which we've seen and that we think we can explain. Which begs the question, does the nature of the assessment actually have an impact on the level of similarity that may indeed be academic malpractice, collusion or plagiarism? Where the stakes are high, might we see more of it? And where the stakes are low, might we see a little bit less? These are questions that are still outstanding that we will be looking into over the coming weeks.
As Nick says, work is ongoing. We are pleased with the results so far, 3,000 entries coming in from across the world. I'm very interested to see how the rank order emerges from this session. Will we see various parts of the world coming higher up the rank than others? And will there be different levels of originality from different countries around the world? We are unsure of that at the moment. The great thing is that we're building both of these products to scale. So 3,000 is our starting point, but we're obviously looking to run hundreds of thousands and millions of things into this as we grow in confidence and learn.